I'd just like to hear about one or two stories of the people that you've supported.
The most heartbreaking, again, because you go through stages. At the beginning, everything is shocking to you. A woman who doesn't have nappies for a baby is a shock to you. You almost feel like telling her off, saying, how can you not have it? But slowly, you go from one extreme to another. I'll give you an example. There was a lady who, a house visitor came to us, health visitor asking for help because the baby was sleeping inside a drawer.
Eh?
Yeah, in a drawer.
In a drawer?
Yeah, because that was the best.
In London?
Yeah, in a drawer. So that was, to me, that shook me. I could not believe it.
Hello, lovely viewers. Welcome to Echoes of Our Community. This is a platform where everybody is welcome to listen, to discuss, to share, and to find out what's going on in our community. It's a platform where we listen to echoes of what is going on, the challenges we face, whether we're professionals, whether we're parents, whether we're children, young people, the things that are going on. This is the platform where we look at those issues. And today we have a lovely young lady who's going to be sharing her dreams, who she is with us. Why? Because it's very important to listen to stories like this, because we're trying to reach a community that some people might find hard to reach. But that's what we want to look at today. Are they hard to reach? And you might think that, oh, how can she reach this hard community? Today you're going to find out that she can. So I want to welcome Zuzana. Did I say that right? Zuzana. But the spelling is quite different and unique. So why don't we start from there? Who are you?
Hi, thank you, Margaret. And it's very kind of you to invite me here. So my name is Zuzana. It's actually very common. Every probably other lady in Slovakia is called my name. So it's a very common name. We also have a names day on 11th of August in my country is a name with Zuzana. So there is a calendar with every day of the year has a name.
Okay.
So in back home, it's a very common name. But I quite like the idea that people like the spelling, even though it's difficult.
Yes.
And every time new person says, can I take your phone number? I said, please add whatever name you think you're going to remember me, because you will not find me under that spelling. So it's very difficult. But yeah, so my name is Zuzana. I'm 44 now.
Ooh.
And I come from Slovakia originally, which was part of Czechoslovakia. It's in Central Europe. I like to correct people, not in Eastern Europe. It's in Central Europe. Because a lot of people say, oh, you're from Eastern Bloc now. So yeah, we're kind of Central Europe, very small country. And yeah, I grew up in children's homes, so wow. I don't have parents, I don't have uncles, aunties, and that's why culture like yours is very appealing to me, because everybody calls everybody uncle and auntie. And
so you know about that.
Some people don't realize how I wish I had someone to call auntie. I don't, unfortunately. So I grew up in the 80s in Slovakia, kind of post-communist, very, very disciplined and strict kind of environment. I was quite fortunate, despite my circumstances and the poverty I kind of came out of. I was apparently, according to the village, very smart. So I actually, in academia, I was very, very good. I had straight A's all the way through to grammar school. I was the only child from my children's home in 20 years to go to grammar school.
Wow.
So it was one of those things that I just thought everybody had straight A's, but apparently not. So only now, after when we had our reunion 20 years from grammar school, then the head teacher met with me in the restaurant, and she told me all the stories, how wow. I was the only one in school from children's home. And actually that was very early on when I kind of compared my experience going through school system and not experiencing as much of this bullying and difference as my siblings did, my brother and my sister, because they went to mainstream second schools. And I noticed that if you I think personally that the fact that I grew up with smart children and going to the grammar school was kind of intelligent benchmark. I never felt like I was different. There was zero experiences. I haven't got. Sadly, afterwards, going into work life, I've experienced every single bit my siblings did during their school, but actually in workplace, because I come from a place where I had a very good job, but the company had probably 7 surnames altogether. Everybody who knew somebody would get a job there. It was very difficult to get a job. It was in a healing spa with a lot of international clientele. But because I had English and German as a language, there was a lot of foreign people. They actually hired me very happily. But I had a very tough 1 year. I lasted there, but it was very tough because people literally went to HR complaining that I was drinking. They tried to get me fired. But then the CEO actually invited me to his office one day, to everybody's amazement, and sat me down, and he said, I know exactly where you come from. And I had a child that was a drug addict, and I know how people could be when you stand out and you have nobody to back you up. So he said to me, I know you're doing a great job, and you will stay and you will have my support.
Wow. You were saying something about your siblings. So you grew up in a children's home.
Yeah.
But you still had siblings?
Yeah.
Can you?
So in my country, the system of children's home is if you have siblings at the time of social services removing you, they have to place you together. So all your blood siblings have to be. One of my sisters, unfortunately, she was too small. She was left in a hospital for adoption. So we found her 20 years later. And she actually lives very close to my brother. And her adoptive parents gave her name Zuzana as well. So that was very, very interesting. Coming back to the point that every other lady is called that. But yeah, we stayed together. I vividly remember my brother not letting anyone touch us. Like the people that looked after us constantly were reminding us that the first few months my brother would just be like a hen. He just had us under his arms, and he wouldn't let anyone, no doctors, no psychologists. They had very hard time to get to us close because he was protecting us. But he's older, so he knew exactly what was going on.
So what did go on in the children's home? Was it that bad? Was it rough, or was it?
You know what? Everyone has different. It was about 200 children between the age of 3 and 18. By 18, you leave, and you kind of are let to fend for yourself. So I didn't have a good experience, I can tell you that much. It was very bad, but I think it was because I was very smart, so they couldn't quite use the schooling system against me. I love school. I also feel like the children's home is the reason why I can't quite accept weekends, for example. Like I hate weekends because as a child I couldn't bear to be away from my friends at school, to be in that environment. It was also very heavily kind of driven by chores. So when you woke up before you even left school, you cooked for 12 children, you cleaned up, you've done the whole house, you vacuumed around. It was very heavily chored. We had animals we had to go and feed. On the weekends we were looking after the garden outside because we were growing our own produce. So it was very, very chore driven. Things like going out to the playground with your friends was for reward. You couldn't just go out and play. So I think that's why I'm thinking back that that's the reason why I hate weekends and I love Mondays, because that always gave me so much joy, and I was very popular at school. So I had the best days at school.
So so that was back then, and now you came into the UK. How was that journey for you? What was that about?
So I think because I had such a tough time being in the environment where the adults kind of didn't quite accept me, it was during the early 2000s when the au pair program was available. And obviously I had languages and I loved English, but the contrast was I was actually using German in my first job with the spa because there was a lot of Germans. So I was kind of thinking, what if I go to England and see how I do with my English? And my brother, he saved up a lot of money to pay for my bus ticket. There was a visa as well. He took me to the embassy, and he literally just with the biggest pride, he put me on the bus and we went. And I remember I was the only one when we got off in the coach in Dover. They were doing interviews and I was translating for everybody on the bus because they couldn't understand. So the lady was saying to me, like, if it wasn't for you, we would send them all back because nobody understood. And then I got to Victoria coach station, and only then I realized my family was in Birmingham, not in London. And I didn't realize how far that was. So I actually asked one of the girls from the bus if I could stay in her host family, and they very kindly accepted me. So yeah, I came as an au pair. That was the only way legally to come to this country because it was before we joined EU. I'm very grateful for the experience again because I came from the environment I mentioned before, kind of heavily chores and looking after smaller children. I had no problem having 3 kids. Now looking back, for £40 a week, I think it was quite experience for those people in Birmingham who probably could afford to pay me that every day. And I had children. I had 18 months. I had, I think, 6 and 8-year-olds. So 3 children by myself at the age of 19.
So has that the one, because now I can see there now the story of looking after children and being an au pair and then growing up in a children's home. So that joy, is that what led you into doing what you're doing? Tell us what you're doing and what led you into that, because is there a connection?
You know what, only now I have people like yourself or people like funders saying, do you have a lived-in experience? And I never understood that question. So before I kind of concentrate on what I do now, obviously coming to London was very difficult for me after we joined EU. I remember I had 18 pounds in my pocket.
Yeah.
It was very difficult. I flew into Luton again. I didn't know Luton was so far away. It's not even London. And then, I lived in a hostel for 7 months in Hammersmith with 6 bunk beds, and I had my whole life on the top bunk bed, and it was mixed males and females.
Oof.
And it wasn't, again, maybe because of my background, I did not find it dangerous one bit. It was just awkward when every morning you would wake up and one person would pack their bags and one person would come. And slowly, again, I found jobs. I was working as a waitress, so every time I had a bit more money, I would speak to the hostel manager and they would give me a room with less beds. So I would then go to 4, and then 2, and then finally I had like my own room. And even the handyman, he came and he helped do the room for me to put shelves and things. So there was about, I think, the first 8 months of me being in London. And then one day, genuinely, I just woke up and I said, okay, enough waitressing. I need to have an office job. And at the time, for me, office job was a dream. Like, I could never. So I ended up working for a company in Hammersmith, just filing documents. I was in a cupboard filing documents. I was just being myself. I was friendly with everyone. And then one day somebody just came to my little cupboard and said, George, the head manager, would like you to come and interview for his assistant because the Australian girl is leaving. And I said, who is George and how does he know I exist? And he said, yeah, no, I've noticed you and your work is very good, so I think you'll be good. So I ended up being a project secretary at the time. It was called, out of my cupboard, filing documents. So I was a project secretary working for oil and gas projects for a couple of years, and the same agency that I signed up for this first job, a lovely lady, I will never forget her, Australian lady called Beverly. She had an office for admin support in Kensington. And she called me one day and she said, I have a client. I would like to send you for an interview. And I said to her, who is the client? And she said, Shell. I said, absolutely not. I said to her, there is no way I will get a job in Shell. And she said, it's an assistant to vice president. And they selected your CV. And I remember, I cried on the phone. I said, why would you do this to me, Beverly? Like, I would never be ready. And she said, Zuzana, I've met you. And when I met you, I knew you will go far. So you go and you just be yourself. But I was like, but I have no experience. She said, just go. And yeah, before I came home, they called back saying they want me for a second interview. And then I spent 10 years working for Shell, for vice president as an executive assistant. Even there, I had a lady who hired me. And she said, we've hired you for your energy and for your work ethic. She said, we've never had anyone like you to come for an interview. So that was also a drive. The reason I'm mentioning it, because then I got a bit more confident. And obviously as an executive assistant, I then kind of was flying through the sector. So I did more banking. I went to Nomura. I worked for Citibank. I worked at JP Morgan. I worked at London Stock Exchange. But I think the biggest reason, kind of looking back now, was that, you work for these big corporations. I don't think there is, first of all, you don't have job satisfaction. It's a very, very high pace. But then I think when Grenfell Tower happened, if we all sadly remember that day, I was working from home and I just felt like so hopeless. I remember, now I have chills just remembering it. And I remember in the morning when the news came on, I just posted on local Facebook saying, can we do a collection for these people? And within that day, I had full house full of donations, everything and anything. But again, being secretary, organized, I separated everything, I put it in boxes. But unfortunately, again, if you remember, by the end of that day, they stopped receiving because they were overwhelmed, because obviously nobody was sorting through those donations. It was just piling up. So yeah, I put it in storage and I waited for someone, and actually I paid storage with my own money for about a year. Nobody wanted it. And that's another reason why I do now what I do, because I know there is a lot of generous people in London. There is a lot of people that care about the environment, so they don't want to throw stuff away when it's kind of still usable. And then when COVID hit, that was the second time when I found myself in the house with, obviously, office people. We were working from home, but not really doing very much, let's be honest. So I just thought, let me try again. Again, there was this wave of people losing jobs all of a sudden, families struggling, So I did the same, but this time, because I had so much time on my hands, I kind of went around the coffee shops. If you remember, there was this takeaway only.
Yes.
And because they were my coffee shops I was using, I knew the staff, so I kind of went around Woolwich and I said, would you mind using your coffee shop as a drop-off point for the donations? And I started in my living room. Then I had a back of the old council building for free. There was just a cupboard with a door with a hole in it. I started sorting every day. I would come and I would go between those coffee shops with my big blue IKEA bag, and it grew to a point where I needed a serious space. So I set up what is now Mama2Mama Baby Essentials.
For the sake of the viewers, we're just here saying that this is what Zuzana does in terms of Mama2Mama. She's going to explain a bit more, but I find it very fascinating that you went from corporate to being a community person. Could you tell us a bit more about why Mama2Mama really exists?
So I think, again, without thinking at that time, which is now 5 years ago, I think it was always in me, because I was that child when somebody from Austria or Germany would ship a bag over for us children in children's home, but we didn't think about it. So I think when you now refer to it as lived experience, for me, it was my life. For the 12 years of my life, we used to go to a town hall once a month, and it was all just big bags on the floor, and we all selected these used clothes. And if it wasn't for these people, I would never have my first jeans or anything, and we never judged the items being secondhand. For us, it was just like this big hall full of clothes. We could choose whatever we wanted. So it was like Christmas for us every time.
So Mama2Mama is about getting donations in and they're very nice clothes that you give out to the community. How does that work, really?
So we like to advertise the fact that you should really give us items that you would give to your own family members. So it should be in a great condition, obviously equipment that works. But again, just to be conscious of the environment, it doesn't all have to end up in landfill, because sadly a lot of people who can afford to buy new things for their precious children, they always prefer brand new. But then you realize very quickly in weeks, if not months' time, that you're left with all these items and nobody wants it. Charity shops don't want it. The era of eBay resale is gone as well. So vintage, again, it's just so cheap. People would rather give it to a family. So I think baby banks came on the back of similar, sadly very well-known concept of a food bank, where the food is kind of passed on to families. And the first baby bank was Little Village in West London.
Yes, I think I've heard about them. Yeah.
Little Village are very well
They were
regarded.
also in Nonhead, weren't they?
They're in few places. They have about 6 or 7 hubs now, but again, due to the need. And again, being from corporate, understanding how you kind of have to have governance, you have to know how it runs. I actually went to Sophia, the CEO, the founder of Little Village, during COVID, and I met with her, and I wanted to see and ask questions like, how does it work? And then obviously she left, and Sophie Livingston came in. And Sophie, again, very kindly offered me her time, and she kind of became my mentor as I was setting up my own baby bank. Because I think what people don't know is the baby bank was running on top of a full-time job. When I worked for Citibank, I did not have the luxury of leaving a job in corporate. So I was doing it.
So you were doing the corporate and then the community. Wow.
And a lot of, even my family, they used to be like, all you do is this. You used to have a life. You used to go traveling. And I used to say to my brother, so he is the kind of the parent in my family, and he was always so disappointed. And I said, I just see this vision where I belong here, and I don't really regret not going. And if I wanted to, I could. I just prefer to do it. But they just felt it like I'm just wasting my life away with this idea. But again, because charities don't really do that well in Slovakia, people thought it was some kind of, people will think it's a scam, and they were trying to put me off, saying, don't do this, like you're gonna ruin your reputation. And I just persisted because I knew exactly. And also, I moved to Woolwich Arsenal, which is the nice riverside. I call it the Battersea of South London, because we are on riverside, and we live in very nice apartments. And I just, ever since I moved in, not only was I one of the very few white people that came there, and again, people were putting me off, saying, don't buy in Woolwich, it's dangerous. And I always had this attitude saying, everywhere is dangerous if you make it. It's the people that make it dangerous, not the postcode. And I couldn't afford an apartment with the money I was earning by myself. So I had a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in Woolwich, but every time I crossed the dual carriageway, I just couldn't stop thinking, like, whoever allowed this to happen? How do you put a road between the old and the poor and this new?
It happens.
I find it criminal. I genuinely was like, who let that happen?
So I'm going to take you to another question that's been on my mind. How do you find work? This is bringing in issues like racism, and how do you find working with the Black community, being white, and how has that felt for you? And what's your dream about that? Yeah.
You know what it is for me? And again, I I don't have this filter. I always often to my black friends, I say, I hate the word black people. Like, why are we? I always keep saying to people, if somebody says black, I was like, that is black. And I point at something black. I was like, why do we have to do it? You know, like, so for me, I've never really looked at the color. Obviously, the gentlemen from Africa, from Caribbean are much, much better looking than people where I come from. So I've been dating in your community ever since I arrived to this country. So if anything, my brother always used to say, I wish you'd have a nice white Slovakian boy. I said to him, I don't care about the color. I said, we all burn on holidays once a year to be brown. So I said to people, it's actually quite pathetic, because why are we all burning on holidays to get a tan if then that's your only issue? So my experience was obviously my long-term partner at the time was Caribbean, and I brought him to my country, knowing my country is extremely racist, but he was in the safety of my family, and my family, as far as I know, there is no issues, and also, if anything, they really liked him. He was much older than me as well, so it wasn't an issue, but I did experience every time, whether it was in a hotel, they would go to a pool, and everybody left the pool, and we were just there, me and him. But he used to say to me, like, I'm used to this is nothing new to me. So I found it very difficult. But the few times that we were in Slovakia, it just shows you how shallow people are, you know. And like I said, I don't look at people's colors, but I feel people's pains, you know. And I often now I have a lot of friends from the African or Caribbean community, and we kind of talk about it, because people now, actually, my black friends seem to think that I'm successful because I'm white.
And I think that's a very good point that we need to draw into, because sometimes are you being empathetic, or you just want to, this issue about being patronizing, that, look, I can help because I'm white, and then so how do you feel their pain?
It's painful to watch, but also I think because I come from poverty, it doesn't have to be my color, but I think I come from nowhere. People are fooled by seeing me in my nice clothes, as you often say, like I like wearing good stuff, but that's all me, it's self-funded. And maybe, again, I don't analyze it, but maybe my brain analyzes it, saying, I come from that, I want to do better, so I'm striving to do better. My lifestyle is self-funded. I had to have multiple jobs to have these nice things. Yes, I like to wear high heels, and yes, I like to look good, but I think again, to just point to the comment I made earlier, I was that child, I was from nowhere, and whether it's the same color or different color, I think I've experienced poverty most of my life.
I agree with you, because I grew up, like I said, having hand-downs, not wearing clothes, and then I get to that place that if I can dress nice, I will dress nice, because I've been where I couldn't have it. So I think it's important that
it's subconscious.
We've got to do that. Let me even ask about, so the corporate and the community, what's the difference? How do you find that now? What are the challenges we are facing as community leaders? What's your challenge?
For me, the biggest challenge was my own naivety, because I thought I have all these friends in corporates. The second I say I have a charity, they will be falling over to help. So what I very quickly discovered was charity, sadly, in this country is a business. It's a multi-million, if not billion-pound business. So most of these big corporations, including Shell, where I worked for many years, every bank, have contracted charities they support. So a lot of people don't know that, but when you enter, like, for example, when I was still in Citibank, we had guide dogs. So I couldn't even talk about my charity inside the bank, because the bank was strictly supporting guide dogs that year. Every year they would nominate a different charity. The same we had in Shell, we had Kids Company. I don't know if you remember Kids Company, but yeah, we had the charity because it was in Southwark, and she was very well known in the area, so Shell just gave her a few years of support. The one thing I actually, because I'm one of those people, I'm a half full glass, I noticed very quickly was, even though people didn't throw money at me, I very quickly figured they could help me with their soft skills.
Okay.
So I kept asking, saying, can you do a budget for me? Can you do a presentation for me? Can you put together a document for me? Can you help me fill out this form? And for me, that was the biggest contribution. And to this day, I promote it, and I keep telling people, every time I have volunteers or people ask me, how can I help? I kept saying to people, it doesn't mean supporting charity. You have to, first of all, physically be there. That's not true anymore. And secondly, it doesn't always mean money. Yeah. What you can do is you can spread the word. You can offer soft skills. I have a gentleman now who is a multimillionaire who has a data company running from Dubai to Los Angeles. And I've met him, and he's now doing a data platform for the charity for free.
That is so good.
So he actually gave me his chief technical officer, and he said, we'll do it for you because it'll take us a couple of weeks. So again, just utilizing the corporate skill set. Myself, I have very many transferable skills. That's how I think I present the charity easy. But if I didn't, I don't think I would manage to do this well, because there is a lot I'm drawing on from my organization skill for the Microsoft skill set. Then I know how to use computers, Outlooks, diary management. And I remember in MetroGov in Greenwich, this gentleman Roy, he was introduced to me as a help. He was he was the person helping set up charities, and he said he uses me as a case study, because he said, I have never met anyone that's organized. And I was like, wow, that's good.
That is good. And you just won an award recently, so
Yes.
I was at that celebration. Well done to you.
Yes.
I'd just like to hear about one or two stories of the people that you've supported, of those vulnerable families.
Gosh, there is so many stories, Margaret.
Because
one or two will not. The most heartbreaking, again, because you go through stages. At the beginning, everything is shocking to you. A woman who doesn't have nappies for a baby is a shock to you. You almost feel like telling her off, saying, how can you not have it? But slowly, you go from one extreme to another. I'll give you an example. There was a lady who, a house visitor came to us, health visitor, asking for help because the baby was sleeping inside a drawer.
Eh?
Yeah. In a drawer.
In a drawer?
Yeah, because that was the best.
In London?
Yeah, in a drawer. So that was, to me, that shook me. I could not believe it. Then I had actually very recently, again, heartbreaking story. A nurse from Queen Elizabeth Hospital came down to the charity, and she said, I have a mother who just gave birth and she left the baby behind because she can't give it anything. So she just put it up for adoption. So we're going to try and see if you can help her, because I have the kind of first newborn packs that we put together. And then she called me 2 weeks later saying the mother decided, knowing that she has your help, she'll keep the baby.
Wow.
But some mothers just leave the babies behind in hospitals because they're just so desperate. They just don't know how can possibly do. We have people that wash disposable nappies all the time to make them last. So then you have these children with these eczemas and everything because there is nothing. So I could give you some, I don't know, maybe this is a bit too shocking for you, but this is what's happening in London.
I am aware that a lot of things are happening because I work with families and I know the poverty level. But because of what you do, especially, I just love the name Mama2Mama, and a lot of people don't know that you are, you do what you do. But it's shocking to hear, no matter what, that it still exists. And I've come to your place in, during the Christmas and see you gathering things and the people but what do we do about this poverty or this lack? Is there anything?
I don't think you can do anything, because here is the thing, Margaret. I've been learning, and I went to, not so long ago, to a book launch of a lady who just researches poverty. She's an old lady. She's been writing books about it. She's been advising the government. I think, unfortunately, poverty will stay because the government wants a certain amount of people to depend on them, and it's a vicious cycle. So as much as I came out of poverty, maybe you came out of poverty somehow, I still think we are extreme examples.
I suppose poverty is relative. It's like there's one level of poverty here, but it's still like it's there, especially in the UK. Some people don't think that UK is poor, but
no, UK is one of the, if
yes.
not the richest countries. The poverty part comes where the cost of living is so high that any amount of money you earn is never going to keep your cost. So this is not about people who can't afford to go on holidays 3 times a year. And I also wanted to always explain to people don't choose to go to poverty. Everyone is ashamed. That's why what I do, my first and biggest kind of pride is to do the charity with dignity. So dignity first for me has always been there. When people were again criticizing, saying, you don't need these overheads, paying for a cafe, why do you do it? I said, because I don't want people to feel ashamed to walk through a door that is an obvious charity. They can be seen by their neighbors, they can be seen by their colleagues, especially during COVID. So many people lost their jobs overnight. We had a couple, that lady was heavily pregnant. She said, my husband just lost the job. They walked in together. They had nothing for the baby because obviously they planned for him to be in employment. So we were helping. Then obviously there was a combination with COVID and the Ukrainian refugees. So we had all these refugees coming. So I've led the company to use the event room, and they were learning English. These were all people in their 50s, 60s, Margaret. These were not young people. But to see them week in, week out, to come through the cafe, first completely just desperate, then slightly smiling, then the week later they would be happy to see you, then they practice good morning. This is what community is to me. The dignity for me has always been first.
I like that word, dignity, because I even heard, even when the way you package the clothes, the way you package the nappies, the way you package that, it brings dignity. So people are not really, even if they feel ashamed, that shame disappears.
And intentionally, I put it in Sainsbury's bag. So when people leave me, even then, no one can say they've been to charity, because the bags are shopping bags.
Wow.
And this is all kind of, as much as it's extra work. I'll give you an example. I went to Primark the other day to buy some pajamas, because we are doing a pajama campaign now. And the lady was thinking she was helping. So she was throwing all the pajamas in the bag. And I said to her, please, could you fold them? And she just kind of looked at me saying, oh, this lady wants it folded. And I said, why would I? By the time it reaches the family, it will be all in a really bad condition. I don't want that. Let's just slow down, fold everything, put it nicely in the bag. So when it reaches the destination, because, you know, also people keep reminding us all the time, we're all 2 paychecks away from being homeless anyway.
Exactly.
Life is very expensive. So for me, it could be me, it could be you.
Yes.
So why can we not create a place? And also, should we ever eliminate poverty, the sustainable part of my charity is going to stay, because we can't be throwing away all these items. You've seen how much stock I have. And that was only a little bit. I have a storage full. Most of these items, when you pick them up, they are in perfect condition. So if anything, and I know sustainability is a very sexy word, everybody wants to be sustainable now, but actually it brings me back again in my brain, it brings me back to what we used to be as kids. Somebody out there who was conscious of the environment would not want to throw it away. They wanted to send it somewhere, so they found a children's home that people can use it. So I'm not doing anything different that's been done. It's just, unfortunately, sustainability now is fancy.
But it's fancy, but the fact is that you bring a bit more dignity into it, a bit more love, a bit more value. And I think that's what makes Mama2Mama difference. I'm really proud and I'm really happy. Could you just tell me what's happening now with Mama2Mama? What's the dream? What's the next step? What are you up to?
So we have been, obviously, for a very short time last year, because of the Dignity First, I was very, very strong and intentional to opening a cafe. The cafe idea was always not only the one-way kind of to serve families that need us, but actually to open the charity element to public. So people come to a cafe, again, spend their money, knowing that the money goes directly to the charity, but I intentionally did the charity in front of customers. So you would walk in, you would have people working from home in one desk, you would have somebody at the table having a catch-up, and you would have a lady who comes to pick up the items. So I did it intentionally in front of everyone so people understand. It then created a lot of conversation, and then people understood. Again, these people didn't feel ashamed, because if the mother comes, she needs something, she could sit down, she could take rest, she could have a coffee, she could even bring her own family there. So it wasn't kind of how other charities operate, of kind of appointment system. So what I did now was, instead of paying, again, this is my corporate skills coming through, instead of paying a private landlord, I was knocking so hard on the council's door saying there must be a space where you guys are building that we can go and we can have a long-term space where we can accommodate the charity and the cafe, but also we can then have a community space. And then they never said anything to me. They were like, oh, we'll let you know. But I found the Morris Walk development was being done, and the second the barriers came down, I came knocking, and now we have a 12-year lease signed.
Wow.
We're going to be paying going rates, like the rent, everything, but I said to the council, I would rather spend the rent money to go back into local economy. Greenwich Council has been in a lot of trouble financially, so I said to them, this is what you need to do. At the bottom of the block of flats, you use the commercial space to rent it out. So we're opening very soon, if not next week, the week after. It's going to be a cafe. It's going to have a stay and play, which again doesn't exist in Greenwich area. And if it does, it's very expensive. It's going to have a work from home station where people will be able to use their laptops and come and change the environment from working from home. And after 4:00 every day, it's going to be open to community projects. So anyone can come and use it, hire it. People can do presentations there. The kitchen will be also. And the biggest proud moment for me is that we will be employing only young Black people. So anybody from the local community between the 16 and 25, all the staff are from.
So I can send some of young people to you.
You can send young people. We're doing barista training. And as much as a lot of people are asking me why don't you just add a couple of white people there? I said, white young people get more job opportunities. And again, this comes back to your question that it's not patronizing. It's me understanding that the community I live in, these people don't have opportunities, so I will give them the opportunities. And I even told them after the interview when I met with them, because I had somebody else doing the interviews, I said, you only have yourself to blame if it doesn't work out, because I'm giving you absolutely fair chance of having a career.
Thank you so much. That is powerful. I hope I'll be invited for the lunch there.
You have been invited from the day we met. You can come wherever I am, Margaret. You know very well. And obviously, like I said, when the space is ready, we will advertise it on socials as well. And hopefully, again, it will give space to people that otherwise couldn't afford to have a space to promote their own business.
Fantastic. On the last note, what would you like to speak or tell our viewers out there in terms of what's going on, in terms of what support, especially in the chaos and the cost of living? Is there a word you want to, especially for our community? Like, you know me, I'm from the Black, sometimes like, no, you don't have it bad. You don't understand. You don't know what I'm going through. What advice,
You know what, I sometimes say this as kind of part of my, when I do like panel speaking and people say, why you and why, look at you look like this and you look like that and you dress like that. And I keep saying to people, not only we are all like a couple of paychecks away, I really want to bring the village vibe back. So I always say to people, it doesn't matter that the person who is struggling is not your blood. We are all responsible for that person. Because if you bring it back to village, that would never happen. You would never have a mother with a small child crying that she can't feed it, because some of us in that village would help. And that's what I'm always trying to say to people. Just think of the village. Make sure that whoever is there, it doesn't matter if they're not blood related. They're all our responsibility. If you're doing slightly better than that person, she's your responsibility.
Think about the village. I really love that. Think about the village. I know they say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village. And many people say that the concept of a village has been lost in the UK or in London. But we want to say we can do something more. And that is what Zuzana is doing. And I want to say a very, very big thank you for coming onto this podcast today. Really appreciate you. So, want to check her out, Mama2Mama. She's doing a fantastic job. This is echoes of our community. We look at what's happening around us, and I want you to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have a comment or you want to share anything, please feel free to do that. I want to say thank you once again, Zuzana, for coming. And hopefully I'm going to have you back again.
Thank you for having me, and well done for doing the podcast. It's not an easy job and you're doing great. So I'm very proud of you as well. And anytime I'll come back happily.
I want you to. Thank you. God bless.
Echoes of our